Today on the Quick Slant, the Packers get bombed by a dirty bird. So the Packers have their first loss of the season. It came, of course, earlier than any of us hoped, but early enough that we can easily recover from it. We discussed a little at halftime about the contributing factors to the Packers being so far behind in the first half. As with any game, there were a number of things that contributed to this loss. I mean, Martellus Bennett dropping passes that should have been caught. Cobb dropping a pass that would have converted a third down. We had an INT in there that really would have been kind of considered maybe the dagger. But in the first half, we discussed at halftime, at our live halftime show, the fact that all the statistics were lining up really evenly, and yet the score was so one-sided. And the reason for that, I think, was the fact that the Falcons were gaining large chunks in big plays, whereas the Packers were not. That seemed to carry through even into the third period, and I think was the deciding factor in this game. The Falcons had three receivers that were averaging 17 yards per catch plus. Julio Jones was in the 21 yards per catch range, and for the Packers, their three top receivers were not even close. Let's see here. We had 10 yards per catch, 12.5 yards, and 12.4 yards were the top three Packer receivers. And that was really what decided it. There were, of course, the first drive where we kind of exchanged punches at the outset and scored touchdowns. There were some huge chunks. Julio Jones caught two passes on that first drive that amounted to, really got them into range to close the gates on the drive. Really, it was not sustained drives that won this game. The Packers were 42% on third down conversions, and the Falcons were only at 45%. That's not big numbers by any means. It was these huge chunks that they picked up. So of course, in the first quarter, Atlanta scored on the opening drive with big chunks of yardage. In the second quarter, they actually scored three times. Sanu had two big catches in the first drive in the second quarter, and Hardy had a big play that took them down to the 2-yard line. And then, of course, on the Falcons' second possession, they started on their 9, and Coleman had that big run, which got them rolling on their second drive, which took them to the field goal. So it was just these big plays that kept contributing, and then of course, like we talked about, the really kind of the dagger was the interception that led to another touchdown, and the Packers never really recovered. They seemed like a fighter that was stunned and just couldn't shake the cobwebs loose and get things rolling. Now I don't think much of the Packers scoring was like garbage time scoring. I wouldn't say that. I don't think the Falcons were playing pressure defense, but they weren't playing soft defense either. So I think the scores that the Packers made were legitimately good offensive maneuvering, but it was just honestly too little too late. So we do have, we've got another shot coming up, and hopefully we can turn this around, get another win under our belts. There are a couple things we're going to be talking about later this week, so keep your eyes open. I want to kind of go over the coaches' film and see why these Falcons receivers were so wide open. So we're going to do that. I also want to kind of wait and hear a little bit more about the injuries, but I do want to talk about the injuries on a later show this week, simply because, let's be honest, the injuries, they played a factor again. You know, we always hate to blame it on injuries, but when Jordy wasn't on the field, he didn't even have a catch, and Randall Cobb was off the field for a while. We had Mike Daniels on the sidelines. This kind of stuff, it contributes. Whether we use it as an excuse or not, doesn't matter. It still contributes, and I want to kind of hear how serious those injuries are before we discuss it. So we'll be discussing that in the coming shows this week, and always keep your eyes peeled for the live show during the halftime. It's a pretty brief show, but jump in and give your comments and thoughts on the first half of the Packers season. And until then, go Pack.